Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and this is the monthly roundtable series that we've been doing the last few months on the show, thanks to the subscribers of the Derek Diamond Experience Patreon. And I've been excited for this one ever since it won the poll for December, and that would be, to me, one of the greatest shows of the last 20 years, The Office. It has everything from drama, laughter, and just some cringeworthy, awkward moments regarding certain characters that I'm sure we're going to get into here in a bit. But joining me for this really fun roundtable, we have, returning to the show, the co-writer of the film Monsters Anonymous, award-winning comedy writer, Mr. Wally Phelps. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, fantastic. And also joining us, making his first appearance on the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, producer Josh Schenewerk. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Excited to have you on. So I know you and I have had a couple of conversations about this show. You're a big fan of The Office, so I thought you'd be a natural fit to have on the show. So excited to have you on.
I appreciate it.
So let's just dive right in. So we're talking about The Office, the American version specifically, though I haven't seen the British version. I've heard good things for the most part, but I've seen like snippets of it. Have you guys seen anything about the British version at all?
I've seen part of the first season. It's a lot like the first season of the American version of The Office. So it's kind of British humor, a lot really cringe-worthy. They kind of changed that with the second season of the American version of The Office. So,
Yeah.
What about you, Wally?
Yeah, I saw the first episode of the British Office. Everybody told me I should watch it. And by everybody, I mean, those strange subset of people who feel that no matter what it is, the British version's better. And I couldn't get through it all in one sitting. It took me like 3 days to watch the first episode. It didn't connect to me in the same way as the American version. And I think a lot of it has to do with the pacing, really.
Well, I know for me, and I didn't discover the show until it was probably in its later seasons. Steve Carell was still on the show when I was first introduced to it. And I watched the first season, and it's only, I think, 6 episodes long. But I had heard all this hype about how great the show was and that it's, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the best shows of the decade. So I was like, naturally, I have to check it out. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but after I watched the first episode, I'm like, this isn't good. Like, I was bored. It was awkward, and not in the good way.
I felt the same way. On the entire first season was a slog for me, because people kept on telling me I had to get through it in order to be able to enjoy the show. But it was one of those things where the very first episode was just so uncomfortable, and it just continued to be uncomfortable through that first season in ways that it's not going forward. But it was, but there are really good episodes in that first season. Like Diversity Day is a good episode, and otherwise, I really don't know if I would have continued with the show if it was the same all throughout the entire series.
What about you, Josh? Did you think the same thing about the first season?
Whenever I first started it, I actually didn't watch all the first season. I that, and then somebody else told me that you just got to push through the first one and see the second one. And I would agree with that. Now, whenever I rewatch it, I actually skip the first season just because a lot of the characters are different in the second season. They rewrote a lot of everything of it, and it's just 6 episodes. So I feel like I don't really need to watch that to see the rest of the show.
And that's kind of a thing about a lot of shows that I've discussed and, with people in the past. Like I know Breaking Bad's another example of, you go back and you watch that show from start to finish. The first season isn't nearly as good as the others. It wasn't really until I felt season 2 when Breaking Bad kind of found its footing. And I definitely think that with The Office. When I got to season 2 and the first episode was the inaugural Dundies Awards that they did. That's what hooked me. When Michael Scott walks into Chili's dancing to Naughty by Nature's OPP, I'm like that I'm in.
Honestly, it felt like a second pilot because it set up the rest of the series so well. Because having the Dundies is a great way to introduce all the characters to us in a way that is much better than, in my opinion, much better than the way we actually met them in that first season entirely. So we got to see the Jim and Pam dynamic, the dynamic between her and her fiance. We got to see how Dwight was with Michael and how, with the cringeworthiness of how he would go in and do things that doesn't make any sense to anybody but himself. Where, like when they said that, oh, everybody's family can come to this one, unlike the other ones. And then it turns out, oh, you're also paying for all your food. Sorry, I didn't tell you that before you got here. It's, and the way it ended with the, I feel God in this Chili's is, I'm like, okay, this show is better than I thought it was going to be. I love it.
And I don't remember how many Dundee episodes they did after that. I know they did the Michael's Last Dundies when they brought Will Ferrell in for his run, which I do want to chat about the guest stars because they had a lot of great ones here in a bit. But Josh, what did you think of was the Dundies episode? What kind of hooked you as well?
It really was. Seeing how they kind of rewrote a lot of the characters, they changed Michael Scott's character, Steve Carell's character, a lot. They made him more relatable to some of the employees. The first season, you see him as not really caring about who his employees were. And this one, he cares more about them, and you can kind of see the employees have a more better relationship with him. And I liked seeing that a little bit more. It made some of his cringeworthiness a little bit better because at the end of the day, they knew that's who Michael Scott was. But the first season, they kind of just saw that and it didn't really work that well. So seeing that more in the second season.
Well, and I feel like with that first season, specifically with the Michael Scott character, and maybe part of it is because we didn't know these characters, were getting to know them because it's literally the beginning of the show. But I felt like his awkwardness came off more as him being a jerk and made him very unlikable, in my opinion. By the time he left, but people talk about his exit being one of the most emotional in recent television history. My girlfriend's a huge Office fan, and she will not watch that episode because she's like, it just makes me too sad.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, in the first season, and Wally, you mentioned Diversity Day. That was the first one where I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of funny. When he signs his release form as Daffy Duck, which was still one of to me one of like low key funny moments. He's like, he walks out and he reads the paper. He's like, I promise with an open heart, and he goes and signed Daffy Duck. Just the delivery of it was great. But another thing that I wanted to talk about too, and this was a recurring thing with the show, the cold opens. It kind of reminded me of Cheers in a way, where they would have the open that may not have had much to do or anything to do with the actual story of the episode. What were some of your favorite cold opens that you can remember off the top of your head? Because I'll throw one out there that makes me laugh, like almost puts me on the floor every time. When Michael Scott learns that his phone has a PA system, and he starts talking throughout the office, And he's like, we'll be flying at an altitude of 2 stories. Things like that. Or Toby Flenderson to the principal's office.
I think for me, that has Jim and Dwight pranks are always my favorite. I love the two of them together, and that's so any cold opening that has, I think the gift wrapping his desk most, and that's my absolute favorite.
When he sits down at his desk and it just falls apart because it's not his desk.
Yeah,
it was great. My favorite is probably the one where Dwight does the fire drill, and he heats up the doorknobs, and he has smoke. He sets fire into a trash can, and it was the funniest thing because everybody loses their minds. Michael's trying to break the window open with the chair. Kevin is in the break room stealing snacks. Angela's like, save Bandit, and the cat flies through the roof. It was one of the greatest moments of television ever for me.
I think if I had to pick another one, it's the lip sync battle, where the entire opening is them doing I can't remember the song, but I think
Nobody But Me by the Human Beings.
Yeah, that is probably my favorite cold opening of the show.
Another one of mine is where he hires the Asian actor to play Jim. And it's like, what are you talking about? I'm Jim. And he even went so far as to change the family photos of him and Pam to have him and the actor. And it's like, I can't even go into it because I'm hyperventilating. It's always. Oh, and when he went in dressed as Dwight.
Yep.
That's where we get the catchphrase, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
It's fun going back and watching the episodes now because you see all the memes and the GIFs. Like you mentioned the fire drill one. When Michael runs out of his office, oh my God, okay, it's happening. Like I've seen that posted on Twitter so many times, and it's like seeing it in the actual context just makes it so much better.
Nobody blanking panic.
Mentioning the lip dub, which I want to reenact that one day. I think it would be awesome to just get a group of people to redo that or do something similar. Would just be so much fun. But when Dwight's on Stanley's desk and he's kicking everything and he grabs the stuffed animal and bites its head off, there's a really cool moment that he does, and I didn't notice this until I watched it on YouTube and I read the comments. After he, creeps up in front of the camera and licks the knife, he walks in the background and he perfectly flips the knife in the air. It flips 3 or 4 times and he catches it by its handle and then sticks it back in its holster. It was awesome.
That's impressive.
I'm like, man, that was low key kind of badass. I really liked it.
The day you do that, I would love to be a part of it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. There's just something about musical numbers to me that are just fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I can't help but think of Andy when we talk about musical numbers, because remember when they took his phone and put it in the ceiling with his barbershop quartet of himself singing all of the parts of Rockin' Robin.
And he got so angry. Just losing his mind, and it was great. I don't know, I like Ed Helms. I thought he was hilarious in The Hangover, and he has really good moments in The Office. But he was, again, one of those characters that when he was first brought in, I didn't like him. He just came off as just this obnoxious, he's probably in his mid-30s, but he still acts like the college frat boy and tries way too hard to be cool. So I was like, I I don't know about this, but again, he grew on me by the end of the show.
I think they character a lot because originally Ed Helms was not supposed to be a recurring character, but he was a fan favorite, so he stayed around, and I think they made him more likable throughout the entire series.
I didn't like him in the later seasons from the time that he became the manager on, because he seems so inconsistent. And I don't know if that's because I don't like to see him. You know what? No, I know what it is. It's just that he did a lot of things that seemed so out of character at that point. Like the whole Aaron thing. It just, I didn't like it. I didn't like him during that time frame. When he left on the boat and just, I know why they did it. I know why they did it, because he had to go film The Hangover.
Yep.
But I hated the fact that he left Aaron and just and his responsibilities and thought that he could come back and just get his job back and have Aaron back. And I don't understand the thinking behind the writing there. There could have been a better way, I think.
I agree. I wasn't a fan of the later seasons, actually.
They're okay. I mean, the final episode is probably perfect. I think it's the perfect ending to what they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything leading up to it, I don't know. There was a lot that they did in those later seasons that I just was not a fan of.
Well, I thought go ahead, Josh.
But I'm a fan of him in the show, really. I didn't like his character at all, and I think that's what kind of turned me off to the last few seasons.
Yeah, and I will say, mentioning the final episode, I agree it's one of my personal favorite series finales, and it kind of brings everything full circle in the sense that I liked the storytelling through the documentarians. You find out in the first episode that this documentary crew has been brought in to make a documentary about this, small paper company. But in a way, it makes that form of storytelling and like how things unfold, and it's the documentarians almost, well, they do become characters later on, because you had the sound guy get involved.
Sound guy Brian.
Yeah, sound guy Brian, which I was glad that they finally involved one of them as an actual character.
Right.
I felt like it was a little overdue, but I thought the way it was shot, documentary style, some of it's hidden camera style, it made for a unique way of telling the story through visual means and through the camera.
Right. Well, and talking about how, sound guy Brian came in later, they kind of sprinkled things like much more subtle things, but sprinkled things like that throughout the series. For like the episode where Pam is slowly figuring out that Angela and Dwight have a thing going on. She saw Angela buy 2 Baby Ruth bars, and the cameraman sees that Dwight now has one of those Baby Ruth bars, so he runs over to Pam, and she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Look over there." It's like, "Oh, thank you." That kind of thing in the earlier seasons made that format so worth it, that they had a lot of things that they could do that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise if it was a traditional multicam sitcom.
Right. And I don't know if The Office was the first to do it, but it's the one that I think of. I know Modern Family did something similar with the way they filmed their show, but when I think of that documentary style of storytelling in a narrative form, I think of The Office. And I agree in the sense that I think if you did it as a traditional multicam setup, it wouldn't have part of its charm.
Right. I mean, there are a few things that make me like question the whole thing. Like, when Andy on the beach day episode, which is one of my favorite episodes, Andy is floating off in the lake, yelling for help, and the camera crew is there because they're filming it. They do nothing. It's like, you could help the poor man; he could drown. But another one of my favorite parts that bring in the camera crew is when Michael crashes into the lake because the GPS told him to, and he actually opens the door for the cameraman in the back seat to save him. And I thought that was funny. So yeah, I love that dynamic.
For sure. Josh, Ryan Gregory says hi on Facebook Live.
Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, so those who are watching on Facebook Live, feel free to throw in the chat some of your favorite Office characters, moments, whatever the case may be, and we'll talk about them here on the show. But what are some of your, like, off the top of your head, some of your favorite moments from the show? Because there are so many, like, there's so many funny moments, there's so many actual, like, heartwarming and dramatic moments that you really don't expect from this type of show. But Josh, we'll start with you. What are some of your favorite, like, overall moments from the show?
Anything involving Jim and Dwight is my favorite. I love the relationship and how it kind of goes from they hate each other to they're the best of friends, but no matter what, they continue the same of that. So pretty much any one of theirs is the best. I like a lot of Kevin moments. One of my favorite is when he spills the chili and he it back into the pot and he just uses everything.
I've never felt more bad for a TV character in my life.
Right. That narration over the top of it, where he's saying how much this chili means to him, just sets it off.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few Ryan moments that I like. I don't like Ryan that much, but I think you meant to not like him, really.
Yeah, he's kind of the villain of the piece.
Yeah. Mostly I like the interaction between him and Michael in the early episodes whenever he's kind of just shy and not knowing what to do. But that's kind of where I'm at, is a lot of those.
Wally?
My favorite moments are all the touching moments, and it's weird, because you don't think a lot about sitcoms, and when you think of touching moments, you think of a very special episode of Full House, that kind of thing. But like this one of my favorite ones is when Pam is in the stairwell crying, and Dwight comes in, and the first thing he says is, "Who hurt you?" And he attempts to console her, and it was a wonderful moment of humanity from him that he ruins, of course, by suggesting she's on her period. So there's that beach day where Pam lets it all out after crossing the coals. The moment where Jim asks Pam out after leaving the interview was perfectly done, where she's sitting there, putting her heart on her sleeve, talking about how disappointed she is that, she's not supposed to be with Jim, but she's going to move on. And then while she's having that interview, he just pops his head in, "Hey, do you want to have dinner tonight?" And she's like, "Yes." And it's a date. And it's like, and that look on her face was like, "Oh, finally, this is going to happen." When Michael steps on his George Foreman grill and needed help immediately. Sometimes you just want crispy bacon, and I don't have a butler, so oh my god, there's so many great memorable moments. When Kevin's shoes were stolen at the wedding because they smelled so bad. Just all of it.
I actually found a Funko Pop of Kevin wearing the tissue boxes on his feet. I was like, stuff. I had to get it. It made me laugh. There's one of him with the, or I think it might be a Funko keychain, where he has the pot of chili. And just beautiful. Looking at it makes me just have so much anxiety. Because like you said, it's the narration where he's carrying it up the steps, and you just hear him say, "The trick is to undercook the onions. Everyone's going to get to know each other in the pot." And I'm just like, no. One of my personal favorite heartfelt moments is when Jim and Pam find out that Pam's pregnant for the first time. When there's no dialogue whatsoever, you just see their reactions and you know what the result is. And then, because they're playing the volleyball game, and Jim, calls Dwight and says, send in the subs. And that was the end of that season. And I didn't realize that until one of the more recent times that I went back and watched the show, because then I started paying attention to, you're going through watching it on Netflix and you see like S5, E, whatever the case may be. And then the next one's season 6. I'm like, that's a great cliffhanger.
It really is. And going back to that episode, I hate the fact that I forgot Michael proposing to Holly, because Holly's in that episode that you're talking about. So it's like the whole reason Michael leaves is because of this moment. But at the same time, it's so beautiful. He's found what he wants, and it's not Jan. The dinner party episode.
You want to talk about cringeworthy,
right? you know that I have soft teeth. And his flat screen TV that he shows everybody, and you can put it away if you need more room.
I felt like every time that group got together for some type of after work activity, something just awful happens. Because then you have the Glee watch party.
Right.
When Andy ends up, what was it that he had? He had something of Gabe's, and then he just starts puking like crazy.
It was seahorses, wasn't it?
Yep. It was seahorses.
It was one of the things that one of the outside of the office. They don't have a lot of outside of the office episodes that I really loved. Is the one where they had the fun run for the cure. It's a long name for the race, but that was hilarious. It's like Toby's the winner, and he's like, "Where are we? About 5K from the office. Why didn't he make it a loop?"
Toby is like one of my more favorite of the because I classify the characters into two different categories. Like I put Michael, Pam, Jim, and Dwight, and Andy to a little bit of a lesser extent as far as like that upper tier of character. Yeah. And then you have the side characters like your Merediths, your Tobys. Toby is one of my favorites just because I feel like he would be a kindred spirit with me if he were a real character. But you gotta love Creed.
The man who grows mung beans in his drawer for a nice snack.
I agree. I think Toby and Kevin are two of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I had to pick a favorite, I would say, and I was thinking about this. It's probably Kevin, because he's just so, I don't know. He's like a big perverted teddy bear, He's just so, I don't know. But he's in a band too, so he has some sort of technical know-how, and and for a secondary, I'd say Toby, because he's such a sad sack.
He just wants people to like him.
Remember when he got episode? Put on. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the episode when he reveals that he's on the jury for the Scranton Strangler case,
right?
And then he's like, maybe. I mean, yeah, I know people are probably talking to me just because I'm on the jury, but once they talk to me, they might actually like me.
Oh, that's so
like poor guy.
Right. And the episode where he, kind of reveals to Pam that he has a thing for her, but then like immediately runs out of the door and scales the fence to run away. It's like, that's so sad.
Well, just the like unhealthy hatred that Michael had for Toby. But I don't know
And
that
it's
it was ever really
unnecessary.
explained why.
Well, it's because he keeps on shooting down all of his great ideas. I mean, I think the first time we see him is in Diversity Day, or could it be sexual harassment? One of the two. And it's because, he's supposed to be the one teaching these classes. And Michael's like, this is boring, this is stupid, I hate you. Let's do it this way to make it fun. And 11 times more offensive.
Michael's the fun guy and Toby's the anti-fun.
Exactly. They're like a magnet that, repel each other.
I can't remember the reason why, but I remember Michael having to do, was it like 6 hours of counseling, and he had to do it with Toby, and it cuts to them in the break room, and Toby's just kind of smiling, and Michael's just like I hate you, I hate your face.
Start playing Connect 4 and he starts talking to him.
Yeah, about his stepdad.
Yeah.
Or like his mom's boyfriend. He's like, yeah, he took me to a baseball game once. It cuts to Toby doing an interview segment. It's working. I'm doing it.
And he's one of the writers of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of them are writers of the show, actually.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, the ones that aren't in every shot. The ones back in the
annex.
In the annex is mostly writers.
Yep. Like even Mose, I think Mose might have been a producer, writer, or something. And
he's that's the creator of The Good Place too, Michael Shore.
Yep.
Another very good show.
His beard, he said that the very first time you saw it, he actually had to grow that beard out, and he hated it so much that after that, it was actually a fake beard every other time.
Well, I mean, he looks like a child even today, so I don't know. He sold his soul or something to be that clever and everything. Somebody, now that I think about it, we haven't talked a lot about Kelly, but I really love her humor, the humor she has. I don't like her as a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love what she brings to the table is what I'm trying to say. Just the whole thing where she basically gets on everyone's nerves, and especially Ryan's, who she's desperately in love with. It's the whole, whenever he gets that job in New York, he hangs up the phone and the first thing he says is, "We're done." And I'm like, okay, wow, okay.
I think my favorite moment is when she smacks Michael in the first season.
Right. See, and I was going to say that was that was the cringeworthy moment that I was going to bring up. The most cringeworthy moment for me.
That is
when
mine.
He did that. Yeah. So we both were. Because there's no coming back. That was the moment that I was like, why do we like this guy? Because I don't.
Well, it's because of that first season, the way they wrote his character, it's the most cringeworthy because none of the employees like him. They actually made them nicer to him in the later seasons. So whenever they see him doing all this, they're like, who is this guy? They don't know anything about Michael Scott yet. So
Right.
The actions are a little bit more genuine and they're not as nice. So you just watch these characters react to what he's doing, especially
Right.
and everything else that he does in that episode.
And I think the moment that really drove that home for me, that they were trying to change his character to somebody we like, was the Halloween episode, because he's in his condo, he just recently got it, and these kids come up and he looks so happy just giving the candy to all these kids. And it's like, well, he's not a bad guy, you know? And I think that was the moment for me that it clicked. And it was like, well, I really like this guy. I hope he succeeds.
Yeah, I think that's probably the turning point for me, is when they made him more likable. Because he still has those awkward moments where you're like, what in the world is this guy thinking? But like deep down, he has good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
But my most cringeworthy Michael Scott moment, and I had to look them up because there's so many of them, but mine would have to be when he kisses Oscar. Just because it was so long and drawn out, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Like,
any other person would get fired on the spot for that.
Right.
That actually scripted in the episode, so everyone's reaction to that was real. He did that on his own. He just improvised.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It works so well because it's like the whole time I'm like, oh no, what is he doing? He's gonna get walked out.
Yeah.
But man, there are just so many. Like to me, the whole Diversity Day episode can count as its own thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Later in the series run, he didn't have a whole lot of those cringeworthy moments. I think the only ones I can really think of, the biggest one anyway, is when he was starting the Michael Scott Paper Company, and Pam's there, all professional, knocks on the door. Michael opens it, and he's in his robe, not wearing no underwear. And we know this because he sits down across from her, and it has to blur out everything. And she's like, oh. And it's like, oh, no. What did you do?
Doesn't he say something like, oh, hey, here's the hooker I ordered?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, in that same vein, when they're making the deliveries and he picks Pam up and Jim walks out and he's like, oh, boner patrol. Arrest that man. Your donuts make me go nuts.
When he went over to the side of the dang warehouse where all the warehouse people were on break, and he was trying to get them to tell him, jokes and to roast people, and they just started making fun of him mercilessly, and he's like, okay, this isn't fun. No, this isn't great. I don't like this. I don't like what you're doing. I mean, and the fact that he kept on using those incorrect slang terms that he was being fed.
Yeah, I think another one I think is when he breaks up with Pam's mom on her birthday.
Right, in the car with them. I mean, come on. What are you doing?
Before that, though, whenever Pam finds out that they're dating, I love that she runs all the way out to the parking lot and you just hear her go,
no! That was great.
Michael Scott's love life, like that could have just been its own separate series, just because you had Jan, who was certifiably crazy.
Yeah.
Which I did like that they brought her back in one of the later seasons, and she was still just as crazy as ever.
Right.
Well, then you had Donna. Then you had was it Pam's mom?
You had Carol, who was his real wife.
Yep. Yeah, because she was the real estate agent.
That one ended. Photoshopping your head on her ex for your Christmas card.
But I will say, the first time I saw Holly and watched their interaction, I was like, those two are perfect for each other. And you mentioned the proposal, even though they're speaking to each other in the Yoda voice. Yeah. It's perfect. It's perfect beautiful for their relationship.
I actually like their his actual proposal to her whenever he was leaving the show better than Jim and Pam proposal. You got the candles all in the office and the sprinklers go down.
Yeah.
Drop down and do the Yoda proposal. I think I like that one better than Jim and Pam gas station proposal.
The gas station.
Agreed.
It's funny because I heard that the gas station proposal was the most expensive shot in the Office history.
Yeah,
because they built the gas station.
Why would you build the gas station?
So they could get the shot they needed.
Fair.
Because they couldn't find anywhere where they could be far enough away for it to look like a spy shot, because that's how it was scripted.
Yeah.
And they needed to be able to control the traffic and the rain and the contents of the gas station. So they were like, well, it's cheaper to build it on a set than it would be to shut down the road, get the rain machine out there on location. It was a big conversation.
Also, another character that I don't think you could get away with today is the character of Todd Packer.
Oh, Todd Packer. I hated him.
They missed out on an opportunity to bring Paul Rudd in at the same time Will Ferrell was on, to have those four together for an Anchorman reunion.
That's true. That is true.
That would have been amazing.
Another one of my favorite moments is where, the store locations, when they had to actually go, they went to Florida, I think it was. And yes, it was Florida because the whole Stanley and Florida thing. And Stanley's another thing, by the way, that I love his character. But we know that Dwight will get fired if he makes it to this meeting, and so does Jim. So he's wrestling Dwight to keep him from the meeting. So Todd gets all of the blame for it and gets fired. And I love that because it shows how much Jim really cares for Dwight, where he will get physical to stop him from being fired.
Yep. That's why I like Jim and Dwight. They're my favorite two in the show out of every relationship there. More than Jim and Pam, Holly, Scott, everyone is the Jim and Dwight relationship is my absolute favorite.
Well, I love seeing their evolution because they
Right.
despise each other in the beginning, but then they turn out to be really good friends by the end of it. Like
that's Canada's wedding almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, almost. I can't be the best. That was another moment that I cried when when Michael Scott showed up and it's like, Michael, you came. That's what she said. It's like, wow, I can't believe how beautiful that terrible moment was.
I do would have given him a little bit more lines and some more interaction with some of the Office people. That was my only complaint about the last episode with Michael.
It could have been a movie, in my estimation. They didn't know he was even going to be on the show until the day he showed up. So I thought that was interesting. They had it scripted two different ways, with and without him. It's funny how there a lot of unscripted things made it to the show. My favorite one being the song that they sang to Michael. That's the Rent parody. The Seasons of Love parody. And because he didn't know that was going to happen. And you can see the genuine surprise on his face when he looked and said, something's happening. and then they went on with it. And then the very next shot is him sitting doing the talking head. And he says, this is going to hurt like a... it was great.
They have a lot of like that where a lot of it's just improvised and not scripted. I think that's why I like the show a lot too.
Well, it feels organic that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking on, when Michael left, when it was revealed that he was leaving a day earlier than he told everyone, but then Jim figured it out and he was like, you're absolutely doing the right thing. And then him saying that you were the best boss I ever had. It was like, I got like that choked me up a bit. Right. Whenever that happened, I was like, is Pam going to get to say goodbye? And then she shows up at the airport at the very end. And it was
very last second.
It was awesome that Michael took the lav mic off, gave it to the documentary crew. You hear no sound. Again, like having no sound in these moments plays a very powerful role.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you see Pam run at the very last second and her and Michael hug. You're just like, okay, you may leave now. You were at peace.
You were at peace.
And then when he came back for the finale, the documentary crew's interviewing him, and he says to me one of the funniest lines that he said in the entire show, and that's saying a lot. But when he said it's at Dwight and Angela's wedding, and he says, "Yeah, it's like watching your kids grow up and watching them marry each other. It's every parent's dream."
Airport. I always wonder how Pam was able to run through security to get to Michael so fast.
That's a good question. I did think of that too. One of the last times I watched it, I was like, no airport in the country will ever let you go through security that fast.
Yeah.
Not even the tiny one we have here in Pensacola. You still have to go through it. So
yeah.
But what kind of touching back on something that we were discussing earlier, there were a lot of guest appearances by other actors on the show, especially, and one of the more clever ways I think they did it was when Steve Carell left and they were trying to find Michael Scott's replacement, because you brought in Ray Romano, you brought in Jim Carrey, which that one shocked me when that happened. I was not expecting Jim Carrey at all. But then you bring in James Spader, you bring in Will Ferrell, which I want to talk about his character in a second. But what were some of your guys' favorite like celebrity appearances, whether it was a one-off or it was like a recurring run?
I liked Amy Adams in the very beginning. I can't remember the name, but she played Karen. She went on to star in Parks and Rec, which is
Rashida Jones.
Yep.
Yeah. Which was going to be a spinoff of The Office until she got cast into it. I'm trying to think. Will Ferrell was good. I like Jim Carrey. I love James Spader, but I did not like his character in The Office. I don't know what. I just couldn't get into it. And Kathy Bates.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you covered most of them, I think. Only one I can think of offhand is Patrice O'Neill, but he was a recurring character. I think he passed away early in the series run, though, so that might be why he wasn't on it going forward. Because he was in the warehouse with Daryl.
Yeah.
And, it was so when the first time I saw it, I'm like, is that Patrice O'Neill? Because I'm a huge stand-up fan, and unfortunately, he was taken way too soon because he was flipping funny, and he that certainly was him. Outside of that, I mean, I can't now that I'm on the spot about that, I can't think of anybody. But
I really liked Idris Elba's character.
Oh, Idris Elba! I was thinking about him earlier. Oh my God, yeah, because he was the great counterpoint to Dwight, to the point where like he thought Dwight was it, and then he realized, oh, this guy's crazy.
My favorite Idris Elba moment was when Kelly and Angela like start to hit on him in the conference room, and it just cuts to him as the talking head. I'm aware of the effect I have on women. Cut back to scene. I just like him so much as an actor that whenever he was cast,
I wish he was just in the show. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and then they brought him back for the volleyball game, and then he was just like a full on jerk. Like at least when he was at Scranton, it was more like I don't want to say clever way, but a little more subtle. Like you could tell he didn't like Jim from the beginning,
right?
But by the time you got to the volleyball scene, it was just like full on hatred for him.
I mean, and I think it's because his reputation took a big hit from the Scranton office. And, especially after having to negotiate the acquisition of the Michael Scott Paper Company, which went terribly for him. He definitely wanted that revenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did want to bring up, because Josh, you mentioned Will Ferrell's character. And maybe I'm in the minority by saying this, but I could not get into the D'Angelo character. It didn't seem like Will Ferrell was necessarily playing it to his strengths. Like, he wasn't, to me, as funny as he should have been. And maybe it was just because he was playing a different character that it just didn't appeal to me. But it was, like after Michael left, he was like, okay, now Dad's gone, so I'm going to be a full-on jerk. But I just, for some reason, I just could not get into his character. And it really disappointed me because I really wanted to, but I just couldn't.
I look at him as more of as a filler. I think they just used Steve Carell's relationship with him possibly to get somebody on the show after he left, just to add another name to get people to continue watching. And I don't think he was really invested in the role as much as he was at the roles.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, they had a good run of characters. Like you mentioned that, you like James Spader, but didn't like his character on The Office. I thought his character was hilarious in that like dry James Spader type of way. But I think if you were to talk about like favorite guest stars, Idris Elba would probably be my number one. Kathy Bates would be up there too, just because it's like anytime she shows up on screen, it meant something. Like it was important.
Yeah.
Right. The episode where Dwight almost shoots Andy was some of her best material. I mean, it's like you shot a gun in the office, Dwight. She's stinking hilarious in that episode.
Or when Michael hires his nephew, and it's like, why can't you let him go? I love him. How far has it gone?
That was another cringe right there. When he came over and spanked him in front of everybody. That.
And Kevin's like, that was awesome. And Stanley just over there was crossword puzzle. Texas Justice.
Oh my God. The moment just it reminds me of the episode where it was like bring your kids to work day or some mess like that. And Stanley had his daughter there and she loved Ryan to the point where Kelly got super jealous and told Stanley about it. So the part where they're in the break room and he's chewing that ass. He's just, are you out of your mind? Have you lost your mind? Because I'll find it for you. Oh my God. It was so fun.
Favorite moments like that where he just goes off on somebody.
Right. I mean, and he has a few like that. The one where he's like, did I stutter? Oh my God. This is not good.
Another great open is involving him when everyone in the office is trying to find out, like, what's the limit that he can go to without noticing something? Because he picks up Jim's cup of orange juice and drinks it as if it's his hot coffee.
Right.
So they do things like put a cardboard box over his computer monitor. Was it Kevin switches places with Phyllis. Andy takes his shirt off and is just wearing his tie. Yep. Dwight's standing there with a goat. And just he doesn't notice anything.
The meatball opening.
Oh yeah. That's another good one.
I mean, there's got to be better ways to hustle food.
I had another open in my mind that I really liked, but it just went out. I got to mention some funny Creed moments because he's just so freaking funny. When he and Jim are playing chess, and Creed's like, "I want to set you up with my daughter." No, I'm engaged to Pam. I thought you were gay. Then why are you trying to set me up with your daughter? I don't know. Or when something happened to Dwight. So someone asked, like, "Oh, what happened to Dwight?" And Creed says, "Oh, he got decapitated. We had a funeral for a bird." And Jim's like, "None of that's real." And Creed says, "You're not real, man."
Any of Creed's girls' bathroom scenes are good too.
Oh my god.
It's the first time.
There. No.
It's like, I pay good money to just go to this bathroom.
Or
the one where he very in excruciating detail describes the type, the strain, and the name of the marijuana that was on the picture that Dwight had, and he's like, "No, it's marijuana."
I still think Creed with the Scranton Strangler.
Oh, it wouldn't shock me.
It's like, oh, today's Halloween? Well, that's good luck. And the blood all over his.
Yeah.
During one of the Halloween episodes when he showed up dressed in like full Heath Ledger Joker gear, I was like, the costume detail was great. And the fact that he like walked right up to Oscar, let's put a smile on that face.
Kevin stands up looking terrible. I stayed up all night dressing up like this.
I've been up since 4 a.m.
That's good stuff.
There was one other. I'm trying to remember the context of the episode, but Dwight is like hanging off of a tightrope or like a wire or something between like a power line and the office. And Creed's just standing there like eating popcorn or something. At the end of the episode, he's like, yeah, the circus was here. And then there was a Jim impersonator, a Dwight impersonator. I laughed, I cried, and then it cuts back to him as a talking head. Not a bad day in the life of a dog food company.
You know, the whole episode where he there was a watermark that was an obscene cartoon of Mickey and Donald, and it was his job to go to the plant to make sure that type of thing didn't happen. So he got somebody fired to cover his own butt. And he passes out a card telling everybody to put money in it and sign it and all that kind of stuff. And then he just pockets the money at the end of the episode and throws away the card.
I love Creed.
Speaking of just going back to that episode of where they're trying to figure out who smoked the marijuana in the office, I can't not bring up the part where Jim is being interrogated and he turns the tables. It's it's like, when I came in here, I was under the impression that I was going to be giving the interview. How much pot did you smoke? And Dwight's like, what? Good stuff.
Oh, man. But as we start to wrap up here, I've got two more things I want to ask you guys about The Office before we wrap things up. Least favorite character on The Office, because mine is easy, but I'll let Josh. We'll start with you.
Mine. I'm definitely in the minority, and I know a lot of other people. Mine is actually Pam.
What?
Really?
Yeah, she is a very whiny a lot. She kind of gets in other people's business, but she doesn't like when other people get in hers. The way she strings Jim along, things she does with Roy. When Jim finds a chance to be happy, she crushes his dreams. She throws the fit about Michael dating her mom. Just a lot of things she does. She's a very nice character, but she kind of inserts herself into a lot of situations where she probably shouldn't be. And she's kind of selfish in that way, in my opinion. I think without Jim, I don't know where she would be in the show. She's kind of one of those characters there.
It's actually a very interesting take on her, because I know she's like one of the most popular characters, but never heard the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah,
I like that.
There's that actually kind of feel that way, and there's a lot more to it, but we don't have that much time to go into her character, really.
You know, I understand it. The thing is, I don't really even see the past Michael leaving as being really the core show. So yes, I don't like a lot of things that Pam did and what Pam became in those later seasons, but on the whole, I liked Pam. I do. I mean, yes, I really didn't like her being upset about Jim, trying to go off and make a better life for them, So I understand that take. At the same time, I disagree with it entirely, and I'm stopping this call immediately.
I will say another one is Andy, though. I don't really like the Andy character.
I can see that.
Yeah. Those are my two least.
What about you, Wally?
Nellie. God, I hate Nellie. She seemed like filler, like, packing peanuts to me. Like, she was in this box full of all these awesome toys, but she comes with the set. That's just how she feels to me. She brought nothing to the table. Nothing. And she was just stealing screen time from the characters I cared about. Is how I felt about it. Because what does she really do that changes course of the show? There's only maybe 2 episodes where she makes any kind of a difference, and those are the ones where she was the manager because she took over. Like, she planted her flag and said, "I am the one." I just don't like her. I don't like her at all. And if I had to, I'd pick Gabe. I also hate Gabe for the same reasons. He's a little better than Nellie, though, so that's why I didn't say him first, because Gabe at least has some characteristics that would, if it wasn't for the fact that I don't like what they did with Andy, he might not be as bad for me but he's associated with that part of the storyline so much, the Aaron Andy thing. So if it wasn't for the fact that I'd hate Andy's final character arcs, Gabe might have been spared in my mind, but no, I don't like him.
Yeah,
I like Gabe.
There are things about Gabe I like. The whole him being weird, experimental filmmaking, the macabre thing, but they don't go enough into it, or he just seems like he's from a different show to me, is really what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I love that actor. There's Avenue 51, I think it's called, on HBO, where it's basically a luxury cruise liner in space, and they are severely thrown off course to the point where it may take like 8 years to get home, that kind of thing. So he's in that show, and his character is hilarious in that show because he belongs to that world, and with The Office, it's like, they put in, it's like they took somebody from a different play set, going back to my toy analogy, like somebody from a different, like, put a He-Man in the G.I. Joes. No, that is not how this works. It looks weird. Sure, it might be a cool crossover, but no. Doesn't make any sense in context.
I think with this kind of show, there's a lot of, you can find things you dislike about a lot of the characters in it. There's only a few that you really can say that you actually like, but a lot of people don't like Jim. They think he's associated. A lot of people don't like Pam. I've even met people who don't like Dwight, and Dwight's my favorite.
Dwight's great.
Oh, I love Dwight.
Dwight.
Question: what kind of bear is best?
Well, there are 2 different schools of thought on that.
But no, mine is very easy. Mine is Gabe. To me, I agree with Wally in the sense that he just seems so out of place, but just from day one, just that vibe he gave, and maybe that's what he was supposed to be doing, but the vibe he gave off was just so unlikable from the second he walked on screen for me. And it's the fact that he's so like low key, full of himself. And when he starts dating Erin, and she's like, "Oh, I want to watch Wally," and then he's like, "Oh, I want to watch something else," but I found it's a compromise, and he finds this like other like horror themed robot movie, and I'm like,
I think it was Chopping Mall.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't say no to Wally.
Well, and that's another thing. I feel that his relationship with Aaron was full of emotional abuse, and I don't like him.
Yep.
I think a lot of the characters you're not supposed to like are the ones that I kind of like, just because I think they're written for you to not like them. I think that's why I like them more, because they do such a good job making you not like them.
Right. Well, that's more the actors in my
Yeah.
in my opinion. It's like I mean, I don't even know how to get into it. Never mind. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the last thing I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you consider to be the legacy of The Office? Because I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is actually the 15-year anniversary of when The Office first premiered.
Ooh,
It premiered in March of 2005, and it ended in 2013. So we're still a little under a decade from the show ending, but it's still held in such high regard now, years after it ended, because of, honestly, I think it's its sheer rewatchability. It's one of those shows that I'll have on as background noise, but I'll still catch myself stopping and watching certain moments that happen. So we'll start with Wally. What do you think is the overall legacy of The Office?
It's interesting because different generations keep finding the show to the point where it keeps on having these resurgences of popularity. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was truly groundbreaking at the time to have a multicam like this, where it's set up like a documentary. And there's a lot going forward that are like that. You mentioned Modern Family, Parks and Rec, which was supposed to be a spinoff. I mean, there are so many. Curb Your Enthusiasm's kind of like that, but it's not a documentary. It's more, but it does have more of a guerrilla nature to it. So it's interesting to me that it is, and because of the way it was shot, I feel that it has more staying power because yes, everything is old. The cell phones are old. The paper is old, but at the same time, it's like it's very relatable in ways that everybody has a character that they can latch on to. Hey, I know a Kevin. I know a Jim. I know Michael Scott, unfortunately. And, because in your life, these people are not going to be good for you. But at the same time, it's one of those, it's a lot of why I like the Kevin Smith movies is because you see people that in them. And the situations are very relatable, especially it's kind of it kind of graduates you from those Kevin Smith early 20s, late teens vibe that you get from those into the workplace. And now you have all of these things that are happening and people are talking in these different ways, and how you have this family at work that you were just thrown into and you have to make it work. And I think that is what I took away from it, because I definitely relate to that.
Josh?
You kind of said everything I was going to say. I would agree with, actually, just how easy you can relate to some of the characters. And no matter how old you are, even generations from now, I think you can be at work and you can find, hey, there's the Dwight right here. Or there's a Jim right there, or something. And I think that that's going to be something that sticks around forever.
Well, I think it speaks to shows similar to that, like, a Parks and Rec, or, I'll use Friends as an example too. People love shows that they can relate to, that you can see these moments happening in real life. Or like you said, a Jim, a Dwight, a Ryan or a Stanley. God help you if you know a Creed. But
I do know a Creed.
But no, I think, and I know I speak for myself too, as someone who loves movies, who loves television shows. those that kind of speak to me in a way or speak to some aspect of something that I know, I'm going to become more attached to and more interested in finding out more about. I'll become more invested in the show or the movie, whatever the case may be. So I agree with both you guys. I think the legacy of The Office is just the fact that it is so relatable in a way, and I think that's why people continue to watch it and why I think there will be quite a few Peacock subscriptions when The Office leaves Netflix, which is going to be kind of crazy because it's been on Netflix forever, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't try to reboot it like everything else is going.
No,
well, I think this is a bad time to announce this, but I have been conjured on.
Breaking news, Steve Carell is confirmed to appear as Michael Scott in Spider-Man 3. Oh, man. Had to throw that one in there.
Every iconic character.
Yeah, I read, and I don't know how reliable it is, but I did read that Willem Dafoe is in talks to return as Green Goblin.
It was comicbook.com, so there is a 60% chance.
Okay.
There have been many rumors about characters coming back for the new Spider-Man movie. I don't know what to...
I mean,
well, Jason and Wally are going to reprise their Monsters Anonymous roles.
Right.
I don't know if you saw it broke on Twitter, but it is happening.
A fat guy running is going to be definitely in it. I mean, honest to God, there's probably a fat guy running in this movie, so you're probably going to see one.
Oh, man. Well, do you guys have anything you want to plug? Anything like website, social media? I know, Josh, you've got a cool event that you're partnering with a movie theater over in Gulf Breeze here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm working with the Breeze Cinema 8 and Mr. Comics over in Gulf Breeze for the new Wonder Woman event on December 27th at 7:30. You can come dressed up as your favorite hero, your favorite villain, whatever, get pictures, meet some new people. I mean, everything is going to be done in a safe environment, and we'll do what we can. But keep your ticket stub for the events, because you can go over to Mr. Comics, and they're going to give a deal for whoever comes with this ticket stub. They might have some fun giveaways, everything else. We're working on trying to get a Wonder Woman to dress up, get a picture with kids, things like that. Still working out a few of the details, but it should be a good time. And then I got to throw it out there since Ryan's on here. There's on YouTube, buddy of mine back in Missouri. He wrote and directed a film called Halloween Kills that I was a producer on as well. So if you want to check out that, if you're a fan of the Michael Myers movies, it's a excellent addition to kind of ties in every one of the movies together and brings a nice ending to it. Also, check out Darkness Reigns on Vudu, Amazon Prime, and a few other things. As an associate producer on that one, it's got Casper Van Dien and his wife Jennifer Winger and a few other people in it. So it's a good one.
Fantastic. What about you, Wally?
I mean, Monsters Anonymous is still on Amazon Prime. Yeah, that's it. I'm at the Big Real. Oh, I can't even say my handle. I'm at the Real Big Wall on Twitter, and I haven't done anything since like March or April. Hopefully next year things will get better so I can start doing stand-up without feeling like I was going to die. And so stay tuned to my Twitter feed for that. I also have facebook.com/Wally is funny, but I never do anything there because, it's Facebook.
That's fair. That's very fair. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this roundtable. This was fun. I love talking The Office.
Oh, absolutely.
I do too. I'll talk about it any day.
Cool. Well, if you guys want to follow this show on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at D Diamond Podcast. If you want to subscribe to the show, just search for the Derek Diamond Experience on all podcasting platforms. And please leave a review. The more reviews I get, the more visible I become to the podcasting public. If you want to check out my Patreon, I'm at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And of course, thank you to my close friends, the Unicorn Wranglers, for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show, so enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun weekend. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.